Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, assessment of the damage left behind by Hurricane Irma set to begin tomorrow. Turns out some Nassauians weren't too happy about missing out on Irma. Those 1,200 evacuees can't return home until NEMA's assessment is complete. Plus, Bahamas Power and Light employees getting a pat on the back for its performance during Irma.
Is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Top in news tonight, teams from the National Emergency Management Agency are expected to begin their assessment of damage sustained on the Family Islands as a result of Hurricane Irma tomorrow. Islands like Inagua, Mayaguana, Crooked Island, and Lonquis have reported major structural damage, according to NEMA's director. However, he says there is a great concern about the state of one island in particular, Ragged Island.
I think it fared much worse than the other islands. Quite a bit of structural damage, infrastructural damage.
There is little to no communication with those who decided to stay on the tiny island of Ragged Island, which is believed to have taken the hardest hit from Hurricane Irma in the Bahamas. Russell telling the media today that it will probably take longer for evacuees from that island to return home. But as for the other islands like Acklins, Inagua, and Crooked Island, Russell says based on what he's seen so far, the Bahamas dodged a bullet.
I think we did very well in comparison to what I heard from the Prime Minister's CARICOM colleagues this morning. We fared very, very well.
But before anyone can return home to the Southern Islands, there must be an assessment. And according to Russell, that starts tomorrow.
NEMA will organize them to get into the disaster-stricken area to get a bird's eye view. The administrators will give you their verbal reports based on what they're hearing, but we always want to get a bird's eye view from the top and then eventually on the ground and seeing the extent of the damage. We don't want to go transporting persons into the islands if the islands are not in a condition to receive them as it should be.
However, there is one holdup.
The Bahamas Air assets are still in Jamaica. We're trying not to arrange for them to come out. Jamaica has some challenges with their tower, so the aircraft cannot come out at this time, and that hinders to a certain extent what we can do. But as soon as we get approval from the Jamaica, in collaboration with our Civil Aviation Department, we'll arrange for our Bahamas Air assets to return. And if some of the other charter aircraft are still out of country, they have to return to the Bahamas first before we can go ahead with our initial damage assessment program.
While Irma may be gone, Chief Met Officer Arnold King says Bahamians should keep their eye on the storm just behind her.
Bahamas needs to pay attention to Jose. Jose appears that it's going to move to the east of the Bahamas, but it's going to do a loop, and it's likely going to meander in the Atlantic for a while and then move off to the east. But we still need to pay attention to it because it's a bit unpredictable, and it may in fact loop back and pose some threat to the Bahamas.
Meanwhile, island administrators for Inagua, Crooked Island, and Mayaguana gave an update on how things are post-Irma.
Molten Salt Company, but we were not able to ascertain the severity of the damages there at Molten Salt, but it has received damages also. What they have been able to do since the hurricane, because prior to the hurricane, the Molten Salt Company had put the machineries on the ground for us, which is the heavy equipment. So the Defense Force officers and the police officers, they were able to clear the airport and the runways, clear the road we have, which is the Gregory Street, the main street of Inagua. They were able to clear that road. They were able to also get the generator for the community clinic up and started. And they were able to assess all of the various damages within the community.
Some government buildings had roof damages. High School, Abrahams Bay, and Parrotsville, not really no serious damage. Mayaguana Airport, ramp, runway was free of any large debris, and there was no flooding on the runway, nor the area where the ramp is. The only problem we have on the airport is the windsock that was destroyed, not really destroyed, but had rot off prior to the hurricane.
So presently the airport is in good condition and ready to resume normal operation. All roads are passable and there is no flooding. Numerous amounts of homes are without shingles, so it tells us that there are roof damages. One utility pole was down with a few lines. Once power is available, the cell service, the land service, the data services, and the water supply will be fully restored to the normal operation.
We will have more from the island administrators in tomorrow night's newscast. Well, it could be a few days or possibly weeks for some living in the southern Bahamas to have power restored. Bahamas Power and Light Chairman Donald Osborne telling our news team that before the company can fly its employees who were evacuated back to the island, they must first allow the National Emergency Management Agency to complete its assessment.
Our understanding is Meguana, not much damage there. Inagua would be the one that has the most damage in terms of the poles. We have about 20 poles or so down, and then we have Acklands with a few lines, whatnot, but seems like we fared pretty well. We have not been able to get any information out of Ragged Island. Obviously, Ragged Island seems to be the one that was hit the hardest.
Now, as for New Providence, there were some outages across the island, but only in certain areas.
We had some outages last night. We had crews out, but obviously as the weather deteriorated, we had to bring them back in and then send them out again. So we have a few pockets here and there, but overall I think we're faring well. If you've not had an opportunity to call in your complaint to the emergency lines, you can do so, but if you've called it in, we're going to get to you as soon as we can. Yeah, I would like to thank all of BPL's employees. Their response was excellent. Many of them worked through the night and some of them are still here. So thank you on behalf of Bahamian people for keeping the lights on as best you can. I know we have dated equipment, we have issues, but we'll get there.
Well, as the island of New Providence received the all-clear, residents were already on the streets today riding around doing their own damage assessments. Our news spoke with residents to get their take on Irma's impact. Georgia Bain reports.
Despite windy, gusty conditions, some New Providence residents are considering themselves lucky that Hurricane Irma did not make a full impact on the island.
Hurricane Irma made history as one of the strongest hurricanes with winds over 180 miles per hour. Irma's first projections forecast that the Bahamas was to receive major impact, but due to a shift to the west, some of the islands were spared. Today, our news hit the streets to speak with residents who were already out and about, like Nicholas McDonald of Millennium Gardens, who said he expected more.
I expected it to be a lot worse than this. I mean, not to say that this is good, but yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot worse than this, but I'm glad that we got out of it, you know, unscathed. I haven't talked to many people, so I don't know if a lot of people really had a lot of damage, but from what I'm seeing out here, it's pretty strong.
McDonald said the heat forced him to the beach despite windy conditions.
The heat, I decided to get out of the house for a while and just drive around and see what the aftermath was looking like.
Any damage at your house?
No, me personally, no.
Riding along the waterfront on his scooter was Ricky of Bar 20 Corner, who said after receiving the news that the hurricane shifted, he came out to view the weather conditions for himself.
They just told me to switch to Cuba side, so I come to check it out, ride around and see what's going on. Everything is still closed down, but I don't know, it looked like it's going, man, but it's just the winds and the rain. That's about it.
Do you have any damage at your home?
Just trees, Bar 20 area. Just the trees, a lot of breaking limbs and stuff like that. That's about it.
Canterbury Park residents Stephen and Sharon Brennan said they came to the beach to give thanks to God for sparing the Bahama Islands during the deadly storm, and said they hope Bahamians are not taking this blessing for granted.
Well, I feel that we are truly a blessed people, and we must take this opportunity to give God thanks and grace for actually protecting us and our family during this time of this disaster hurricane that was in this area. Based on what we would have read and what we would have seen via the media, we know that it was really a destructive hurricane. Some lives were lost, and thank God in this area where we live, called the Bahamas, where we really believe God resides here.
A resident of Nassau East who identified himself as Coach Hannah was upset on his journey to find an open gas station and food store. According to Hannah, it's just a regular Saturday in New Providence.
A lot of my friends were telling me all along
the hurricane not coming here. The hurricane not coming here. You know, and then they say, oh yeah, I remember for years, Bahamians always had that attitude, you know, that the hurricane is not going to come, never going to come, you know, until like recent times, you know, but like I thought it was going to come, you know, but then come to find out, it went the other way, it went west. It went west of us. And then Jose is coming, and Jose is going to go east.
Reporting for our News Weekend Edition, I'm Georgia Bain.
The Nassau Airport Development Company will resume operations at Lynden Pindling International Airport tomorrow. In a statement, the company said LPIA sustained no damage from Hurricane Irma, and with the all clear issued by NEMA, airport employees and stakeholders have been asked to safely return to the airport to prepare for prompt resumption of operations tomorrow. The traveling public is encouraged to contact their respective airlines for flight information using the listing of all airlines and their contacts found on LPIA's website at www.nassauLPIA.com. Meanwhile, Cable Bahamas' technical teams were deployed today immediately after the all-clear was given. Chief Operating Officer John Gomez indicated that CBL's network sustained minimal impact in the northern and central areas. He added that commercial power outages affected some of the nodes in CBL's network last evening and this morning, but the company was working closely with BPL to ensure swift service restoration. Gomez said their primary objective was to ensure the continuity of REV services across commercial and residential businesses entities during the passage of Hurricane Irma, in addition to the quick and efficient restoration of any impacted services. Cable Bahamas confirmed that their emergency protocols were activated from Sunday, September 3rd. He said their technical teams are currently assessing the impact to the network in the southern Bahamas, adding CBL will provide a complete update on those areas impacted by Hurricane Irma as soon as all assessment reports are complete. Well, now that NEMA has given the all-clear for the Southern Islands, evacuees are anxiously awaiting news on when they will be able to return to their homes and assess the level of damage done by Irma firsthand. Well, Tourism and Aviation Minister Dionisio de Aguilar, who has the responsibility of getting evacuees home, says it's a process.
Obviously, you have to assess what's there. You don't want to send people down there and there's nothing to go back to. So we just have to assess what's there. We have to get the airports open. We have to give people the ability to speak to the few family members that remain there to ensure that there's something to return to. So we'll see, but that's the next step, one step at a time, just to get them out of harm's way.
The Ministry of Tourism recently embarked on an exercise to personally brand each major island as a tourism destination so that all can appeal to a different type of tourist. With several of the southern islands now receiving some damage from Hurricane Irma, de Aguilar says it's difficult to determine a plan of action.
Obviously, it's difficult. We have to assess what's left. Unfortunately, the international traveling public lumped the Bahamas as one country. And so the bigger concern is the northeastern Bahamas, which will, from this storm, sustain very little damage, we hope. And we have to convince the traveling public that Nassau and our other larger markets like Eleuthera and Abaco are open for business and ready to go. I'm sure there'll be some cleanup.
While de Aguilar admitted that he is still putting his post-Hurricane Irma plans together, he urges Bahamians to get the word out there that the Bahamas is up and running, as tourism is still the #1 industry.
Tourism is a fundamental part of our economy. So it's very, very important that we get the word out that, that we're back up and running and ready for business, and our main tourism centers did not get hit. But yes, the southern Bahamas, I'm sure it'll be time until we convince people again that they're open for business and ready to go.
Who will qualify for insurance payouts? That's coming up when our news returns.